Welcome, welcome to the Sharpe Show. I'm so happy that you have all joined me this afternoon. I know usually we do a little bit later on, but we have a very special show. We're doing it earlier today, and here's the best part. If you like what I'm doing, if you want to grow our media, then you know what you have to do? You have to like, comment, and share. You've got to get out there and tell people that we are important, how we can get past our media blockade. That's by us creating our own media. So right now, like, comment, and share. Stop looking at me. I know I'm handsome, but go ahead and like, comment, share. Let people know we're doing this so that we can move forward and keep rocking and rolling. I am very happy. We have an amazing show today. So happy. I am a libertarian because of these two gentlemen right here. I'm a libertarian because this amazing governor, I saw him on TV and I said, wait a minute, this guy makes sense. This guy makes sense. You know what? Maybe I'm a librarian or whatever he was saying. Libertarian. Okay, I'm one of those guys. Maybe I'm one of those guys. Maybe I am. And I was so happy. And because of the awesome Governor Gary Johnson, I'm libertarian to this day. And I'm so happy to have him on our show. Thank you, Governor, for coming. I so appreciate it.
Anytime, Larry, and ditto, going the other direction. I was impressed with you the first time we met and have been ever since, and I'm excited that you and Jim Gray are running for, Libertarian president, vice president. Wow.
Absolutely. Yes. And now I'm on top of that, I get Jim Gray too. I get the judge on top of it. The two people, my first vote for libertarians ever in 2012 was for you two gentlemen. I'm sorry I'm being a bit fanboyish here. I even put a shirt on. Look at this, guys. I put an actual college shirt on just because you two guys. Governor, you don't ever have to. Don't worry. Oh, good. This is me. It's on me. I'm good. I never wear a college shirt, but I do it this time for you guys. So, again, I appreciate it so much. I want to ask an interesting question, and I think most of our viewers will want to know. Governor, when you first met the judge, if you remember, can you tell me kind of what you were thinking? What went through your head when you first met the judge?
Well, he came to Albuquerque to speak at a national drug reform conference, and he stuck his neck out, and he was saying very sensible things that I felt I was doing the same, and so became a fan at that point.
I love that. Judge, tell me, when you met the governor, what were you thinking?
Well, the first time I knew about Governor Johnson was when I opened up my daily newspaper and saw, wait a minute, these front page headlines, the governor of New Mexico has stated that our war on drugs has failed. And soon thereafter, he had a convention or a conference in Albuquerque. I was invited to go, and the first time I shook his hand was on the dais there. But I was already enamored with this fellow who could stick his neck out, who could talk sense, and that from my standpoint, we've been friends ever since.
Well, this is the thing that was great, right? Back at that time, this was when the drug war was still kind of in full effect. I mean, most people were still saying, hammer 'em harder, and you two were saying, no, what are we doing here? I mean, this really had to be a difficult decision to make. And I think when you're making it, you're almost taking your political career, in your hands. And Governor, I know you were a rebel from the beginning. This isn't new for you, and you still are a rebel. I feel like it might have been easier for you because you kind of are that entrepreneurial spirit, that kind of rebel. Was it easy or no?
Well, it was the right thing to do. In 1999, and at the time I came out and said that we should legalize marijuana. I think that about 30% of the U.S. population agreed with me on that. And today, what is it now? 65, 70%?
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about just medical. I'm talking about recreational. So, we've completely changed. And I always point out the fact that, hey, when you got 35% of the people that think that marijuana should be criminal, telling 65% of the population that they belong in jail, because that's ultimately where it ends up.
Right.
That's wrong.
Right.
And in looking at the issue from a governor's standpoint, what really broke it for me was half of what we were spending on law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons was drug related. And what were we getting for that? And as I always tell people, look, you may disagree with the use of marijuana, but as long as somebody isn't doing any harm to anyone else, arguably other than themselves, have at it. And really, that's libertarian philosophy.
Well, I want to go, if I could, one step further, right? You were saying this at a time when people were saying it's wrong still. Now it's years later. It shows that what you were saying did matter. I mean, it eventually you became the mainstream, if that makes any sense, right? Now everyone's like, whatever. You become the mainstream here.
No, I completely agree. And, it's the analogy of first one over the hill gets shot, but somebody's got to be the first one over the hill. And I'd like to think the same with regard to the Libertarian Party, and Jim Gray and myself run for that office. We're the first ones over the hill. We got shot 2012 and 2016. And at some point, I do think that the Libertarian Party is most reflective of most Americans. It's just that they don't know it.
Yeah, I remember you told me something. Go ahead, Judge. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Let me ask you a question, because I don't think I've ever heard this from you. When you became governor of New Mexico, you, of course, brought in your staff and you asked them, and correct me if I'm mistaken, you asked them, what's the biggest serious problem facing us in New Mexico today? And they said it was this, it was that. So you said, all right, let's address that. And then you did the second and then the third. And then you said, after you'd addressed the first three, for example, you said, well, what's the next one? And your staff said it's drug policy, it's marijuana stuff. So you just said at that time, all right, then let's address this. Let's figure out what the right thing to do is. And you went from there. Is that by and large the way it happened?
Nope, not at all. No, it was me. I got reelected, and looking at the next 4 years, back to having recognized that half of what we were spending on law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons was drug related. And by the way, marijuana is still the #1 arrest offense in the United States today, and it has been every single year. But no, Jim, it wasn't a staff issue at all. It was something that drove me in running for office. Could you actually run for office? Could you actually address the biggest issues regardless of the political consequences? And this was, I think, the best example of, could you survive? I wasn't naive at the time. I really thought that this would be an 85-20. When it came to faxes, phone calls, emails into the office, I really thought that it was going to be about 85 negative, 15 positive. And it turned out to be about 95 positive, 5 negative. Now, I realized that had to do with those people that were consuming marijuana, finally getting a voice.
Wow. That is amazing.
I can tell you that
I think so.
I held my press conference in April of 1992, but I wasn't completely stupid. I'd just been reelected for another 6-year term right before that. So
Me too. Same thing.
That's great. So you can get reelected and then gamble a bit. Okay, so I have to know that now. That's when I gamble. Once I get reelected, gamble a bit. Okay, well, good. I like that. I remember you told me something, Governor. You said that when you were thinking about people that you wanted to appoint as judges, that you'd ask them a question about if there was a law that if you were 17 years old and convicted of graffiti, that you'd have to sentence the person mandatory to death. What would you do?
Well, yeah, the question went, legislature passed it. The governor in his or her wisdom signed the legislation, and it was pretty, it had been proven to be constitutional, blah, blah, blah. What would you do? Well, the best answer to that, would you sentence, as a judge, would you sentence that person to death? Well, the best answer was, okay, based on everything that you've said, I would have to resign because I could not do that. That was the best answer that I heard.
Judge, how do you feel about something like that?
there comes a time, Larry, we take an oath to support and defend the Constitution and the laws of the state of California, where I'm from. If you can't follow the law, then I think you should resign. I might mend that a little bit, Governor, and say I'd probably sentence him to a week in home confinement, and then I would resign. But that's the only difference.
I like that. So you'd sentence him something cool and then resign. I love it. That's amazing. So if I get us to go,
one thing that I told my cabinet, and one thing that I told Jim when we became running mates, is I told Jim and I told my cabinet as governor, I said this constantly. I said, you can disagree with me every single day of the week, and you can do that in front of the media as long as you know where I stand on the issues, because we're not going to agree on everything. And I told Jim, I said, look, somebody comes to you and says, Gary Johnson said the following, and you just deem that to be absolutely crazy. Why don't you tell him that's absolutely crazy? I can't believe that he said it, but if he did say it, it's crazy. And I think that is the complete opposite of what we have today with the president and all of his minions.
Larry, I was going to bring this up that yes, when the governor asked me if I would honor him by being his running mate in 2012, I said yes on one condition, and that is that we run to win. That we agreed upon immediately. And then he told me what he just said, that Jim, if you disagree with me, feel free to say so in public, which I almost dropped my teeth. At the time, but I didn't think that George Romney said that to Paul Ryan, and I was sure that Obama had not said that to Joe Biden, but that's just the type person. So one time I asked him that question, where did that come from, Governor? And he said just what he did now. That's what he told to his whole cabinet. He also said, by the way, if you disagree with me in public, be sure that you're right. And I thought that was pretty good advice.
I like that advice. That's great advice. So you guys ran in 2012 together. Can you tell me something that you think was a life lesson or a campaign lesson that you would impart upon someone else running, particularly in a large campaign?
Well, it's something that I've known from day one, having been a political science major, is that the main ingredient when it comes to success running for office is money. You have to have money, and it doesn't have to be a whole lot more money. It can be less, but there has to be a certain parity in it.
Yes.
So in 2012, more so in 2016, when Hillary had $1.8 billion, Trump had $1.8 billion, and Bill Weld and myself had $12 million, it just doesn't stand up. And Jim and I think we raised a couple million, just 2 million. Really, when you do a cost benefit of the votes that Jim and I received, which are 1.2 million, and then in 2016, 4.5 million, boy, we were the ones that got the bang for the buck. So I hope this is a movement, and that it's not, and that's why I'm glad to see the two of you are running, because there's a real chance here that this is a movement, and it's not necessarily names so much as it is, look, this is the philosophy that we the American people really now have come to understand, and it would be because of the two of you running, but that we've come to understand, and this is what we believe.
Yep.
I ran for U.S. Senate here in California in 2004, and after the election, and I did not prevail, but after the election, Arianna Huffington wrote out, only halfway tongue-in-cheek, that she thinks we ought to do away with all the elections and just give the position to the person that raises the most money. And in a lot of ways, that's basically what we've done. Why waste the time on the vote process itself? If you were to ask me, when I'm talking with particularly young attorneys or otherwise, I say, what's the most important part of public speaking? And the answer is, show your audience you believe what you're saying. And I would say the same thing with regard to a political campaign, that if you don't believe it, you don't have to say it, but anything you say, you should believe. And I would pass that along to anyone.
Yes.
Well, and as painful as it is sometimes, but it's never really painful. The the truth is always the best ingredient. Always tell the truth. And it's really difficult to do any harm to somebody who's willing to tell the truth, regardless of the consequences.
Well, it's funny. You said it on the campaign trail, Governor. You said, "I just tell the truth all the time. I don't have to remember anything."
Yeah, and that's I think that's a quote from, who is that a quote from? Benjamin Franklin, maybe?
It's you.
Well, I'm borrowing it.
I'm sorry. Yes. Go ahead, Judge. I apologize.
I've been asked since the 2012 election about Gary and what I learned, and he said, I said he to a fault, he's not a politician because he always tells what he believes. He always tells the truth, and I just think that's admirable. A lot of people don't do that, of course, and sometimes, most of the time, I guess they get away with it. Sometimes it rebounds badly, but voters frequently have a short memory. But Gary Johnson, if you had to give him a negative, it was that he said the truth. He said what he believed, and that was a really good thing from my standpoint.
Well, and Jim, when you compare that, and Larry, when you compare that right now to the coronavirus and the communication from the White House, look, when they asked the question, look, if you would know now what, or if you were to know then when it first broke what you know now, would you do things differently? How can you not answer that question honestly by saying, of course I would do things differently? But we don't have the effort of hindsight. And I would answer that 100 times if I had to. Are you to blame for the fact that there is more coronavirus infections than there should be? Yeah, you can blame me if you want, but look, we're doing the best job that we possibly can right now, and just back to transparency and the truth and honesty, and it's all just lacking.
Yes, and lacking so much. I worry that even when we are transparent, do people even believe us anymore? Right? There's that old saying: if you want people to not believe you, just tell the truth.
No, you're exactly right. The truth. You can't reverse course on something like this, and that's the big issue that I have right now with Donald Trump is that he just doesn't tell the truth.
Right.
And for me, a stickler, when I've said something over and over and over and over again, and then I come to find out that it's not right. I want to get on the phone and tell everybody, or blast out the news that, hey, I'm wrong. This is what I've been saying is wrong. Here's what I believe to be right today.
Absolutely.
How that would just go a long ways.
Sure. I was trained as a judge to listen. I mean, nobody's an expert in everything, and that's most assuredly includes me. But I listen. You evaluate, you decide credibility of who is speaking and who's giving you the information. Then eventually you conclude and you make a decision. What we're seeing in the White House today, he has these experts around, and if he doesn't agree with them, he fires them.
Yes.
I mean, my good sakes, what are we doing here? So you accumulate a whole bunch of yes men around you. What good is that? And Gary would listen to people when he was governor. He would get good people. He'd have them on merit, and then actually he'd listen, which was a wonderful thing. That was your reputation, Governor, and it's just a good thing to do. And when you're wrong, damn, got it. I made a mistake. I believed this at the time. No, quickly, let's correct that. Let's do the right thing. We're not hearing that at all today in any level of government, really.
Well, I think you also have a situation to where once you say you were wrong, you have a zero tolerance media. You have a zero tolerance population that goes, oh my God, you were wrong 10 years ago. Therefore, I can never talk to you ever. Therefore, I can ignore you forever. I think that's also an issue. We've got to get away from that and be more human, right? I want someone who's human. That's what, I gotta tell you something, Governor. There were parts of the 2016 campaign I loved so much, and they were when you were angry. I loved when you were angry, Gary, because you were real, and I loved that anger that when it came out of you. Did I lose your video, Governor?
Well, somebody called me on my telephone, and I said I don't accept, and now I don't see my face either. So how do we do that? How do we fix
That's
that?
That's a great question, one which I don't know the answer to. You could always link back in again if you want to.
Well, I can do that.
From Seth Levy, who's my expert here, you have to log out, refresh, and log back in.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
I'll just tell jokes between now and when you come back.
Please don't do that, Judge. I'm kidding. Yes, but Judge, I mean, I think this idea of being honest and being transparent is something we talk about all the time, but very few people actually do it.
Well, let me give you my take on what we have seen in the last few months here, because the coronavirus, it's certainly serious, but we had politicians responding politically to protect themselves. So if I'm a mayor or I'm a governor, look, I'm going to make sure that you stay healthy. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you healthy. So then if we decimate the economy and ruin people's jobs and their businesses, it's all right. I did everything I could. So if you stay healthy, I'm a hero. I was successful. And if you get sick, well, you can't blame me because I did everything I could. In the meantime, we have destroyed, put tens of millions of people out of work. We have unnecessarily ruined hundreds of thousands of businesses, many of which will not come back. And it's all arbitrary. So as Milton Friedman said, if you really expect these angels of government to help you in these certain things, where have they been so far?
Absolutely.
And it's better for you to make your own decisions and the rest instead of this central planning by government, which simply cannot be done.
Right. No,
well,
completely.
And on a very personal note, I've been training really hard for my 4th Continental Divide mountain bike race, and that has been canceled because of the coronavirus. And I got to tell you, 200 people starting out in Banff, Canada, riding 2,800 miles to Antelope Wells, New Mexico. There's some social distance built into that right off the bat. So my life has been turned upside down, and I'm pretty fortunate. We're all pretty fortunate.
Talk about the definition of social distancing, but why close a golf course, for heaven's sake? Particularly if I have my slice, I'm not going to be near anybody. It's just
well, the notion of best practice. I'll tell you what. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go to a concert if one is available to me in a few weeks. Am I going to go to a restaurant? Yeah, I'm going to go to a restaurant. I'm going to go to a restaurant today and it may actually be open, but that's just me. I'm gonna hold off on getting in an airplane personally. I'm gonna hold off going to a concert or an athletic event where there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people in attendance. And then back to best practice. Don't you think there's going to be some big major incidents as a result of loosening it up? Well, I think we're going to all learn very quickly from those incidents and not repeat them, and we will move forward. And you probably saw today that Moderna phase 1 of what ends up to be 4 phases of testing, but that the vaccine is promising phase 1 testing, and I'm using the wrong terms here, but ultimately that's what it's going to take is a vaccine, and it looks promising, but that's still 8 months out.
Well, look, I love the entire concept that you're talking about. My biggest issue is, as a Marine, I was taught that you got to be able to function in the battlefield, even if it's contaminated. The war doesn't end because you've been hit with a chemical weapon or a biological weapon. You get back,
Larry,
you
I can't hear you at
get
all.
back in.
I'm not getting any reception. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly. Yes. Can you hear us, Judge?
I can't. Okay, there. Now you're back.
There we go. What I was saying is when I was in the
Larry,
Marine Corps.
You're not. Jim, I could hear you, but Larry, I can't hear you.
Okay, well, Larry can talk and I'll repeat what he says.
All right.
Probably it'll be more condensed, but and
I don't have to talk. I'm happy to hear you guys talk. All I'm saying is we have to be ready.
Can't hear you, Larry.
For the next virus. Tell him that, Judge.
Well, he says we have to be ready for the next virus, and that's government, and I'll bet you did that in New Mexico, where you plan. You don't know what the emergency is going to be, when, where. Could be an earthquake, fire, could be a pandemic or a hurricane, but you have a plan in effect so that the experience happens and the problem comes and you're not prepared. It's just too late to plan by that time.
Yeah.
Well, I've had it posed to me many times since this pandemic has hit. Gee, I guess you're glad that you're not governor right now. And no, just the opposite. That's why you take the job is, you sit at a table with the best and brightest and hear all sides to it and really genuinely come up with a plan that for lack of nothing else, it's going to be a plan that's common sense. And yeah, might make mistakes going forward, but let's be transparent about going forward. And I just think that sure worked well for me, and it could work really well for Trump if he were anywhere capable of doing that. But I guess he's not.
You were a businessman. That happens in business all the time. You own a company, all this something goes badly. You show flexibility. That's what you do. It's so important, I think, to have people with this background in public service. I don't see that in the current administration, but I sure saw it with you.
No, I think that's the way that things should operate, and wouldn't it be nice if that were the case? And anyway.
I think the Swedish motto is the model.
And I don't want to begrudge any politician at the moment for making the decisions that they've made. I think everyone in a position of making these decisions is making the decisions in what they think are the best interests of their constituency. I would probably be erring on the open it up side at the moment. I would be probably erring on that side.
Yeah, Judge, if you could let them know, how about the Swedish model? I mean, that's the model we should be working with right now. Judge, can you hear me?
Can't hear a word from Larry.
Judge, can you hear me?
This was the easiest broadcast to ever tune into. Thank you very much. Wow, this was easy.
I like that. But you can't hear me. So hold on.
Whoops, now we lost you. But
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
There we go. Okay. Easy day. I've repaired it. Yes, I've repaired it. So yes, I have magic powers. I am impressive. And modest too, which of all my great traits, my modesty is my best. No, but what I was bringing up is, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was taught that you have to continue to fight even in a battlefield that is contaminated. It doesn't matter. The war never ends until it's over. So what do? You come up with protocols to survive in a negative environment and to still fight the war. That happens in life, in business. We can't just shut the economy down every time an a virus pops up. A virus is going to happen again. We have to establish protocols to survive in a negative environment so we don't destroy our economy every 3 years.
Well, and I know, one death is one death, and it's very, very meaningful to a lot of people. But statistically, this is just not the the pandemic, if you will, that it was of 1918. Now,
sure,
that isn't to say that it couldn't have been, or
absolutely
that it won't be going forward. I mean, we still have the notorious second wave coming at us.
And the other issue to remember, I believe, is that it's still, without question, we own our own lives. Right. And I have two people in my life who are over 80. Both of them are immune compromised, one because of diabetes and one because they are on chemo. And in both cases, I don't go see them because they don't want me to go see them. And I don't want to go see them. Right. I don't want to, give them a chance where they might get sick or ill or hurt, whatever the case may be. I will deliver things to them because I have a car in New York City. So I deliver, but I don't show up. I'm masked up, gloved up, drop it off, and I leave. But if one of them were to say, Larry, I want to spend time with your kids and take them to the park, and I want to do that, I would say okay if they wanted to, because maybe they feel that their last years are better spent with their family than spent alone. I don't decide that. they do. And that's the most important piece.
No, I agree. And that's, I think that ends up, that is the libertarian philosophy, that it is your right as a human being to live your life as you see fit, as long as you're not putting others in harm's way. And of course, that flies right in the face of the coronavirus, because if you've got it and you're associating with other people, why, you are going to put other people in harm's way. So, boy, these are just unprecedented times that we're living in right now. And I hope we get out of it as quickly as we got into it.
So,
listening to you, Governor, you certainly convinced me. I don't know how I didn't see this. Right.
I love it. So now that we're looking into 2020, Judge, is there something that you can say as you watched both 2012 and 2016 kind of happen? Is there something you think that we should be looking at more than anything else?
Be yourself. I think that in today's world, Larry, people of our country have never been more to have a unifying candidate, a unifying pair of candidates, someone that they can believe in, somebody that is opposite of what the Republicans and Democrats will be proposing. And we need to show them by inspiring them into libertarian ways. And unfortunately, some people are going to scare them if we were to go to a libertarian way. I'm going to abolish this and abolish that. We have the same goals, but we have more incremental approach, which I think should be extremely successful in 2020. We're so polarized today that people are going to be anxious to hear what libertarians would discuss, what libertarians would implement, and we have certainly a challenge ahead of us, but I think the rewards will be magnificent.
What do you think, Governor?
No, I wholeheartedly agree that there is an opportunity here to provide a new look on this, and that is the opportunity.
Do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judge.
I have when you're ready to change the subject, I have a question for the governor, but let's finish.
No, go ask. Please go.
Well, okay. In 2012, after we'd gone around the country, I didn't see you almost at all during this campaign. There were only two of us, and you'd be one place and I would be another. We did meet a couple of times, but after it, we had a sign of celebration at the end of the campaign on the voting day. And then that was in Albuquerque. And then you invited us up to your house in Taos. My question is, I can't really see much behind you, but are you at home in Taos right now? Because it was a beautiful house and you were very proud of it for good reason.
Yes, I am. Can you, I mean, it's...
I was asked. You were very proud of
your
support, remember, and rightfully so. But yeah, it's a beautiful house. Your river is going right by there too, and it's just a great spot. So maybe you could quickly give us a little tour of your Taos house.
Quick, give you a tour?
Well, just tell us about it or show it if you can.
Well, it is. I've got 25 wooded acres. I got 1,600 feet of frontage on the Hondo River, which runs through the Ski Valley. I'm 10 miles, 12 miles from the Ski Valley, and skiing in Taos is as good as skiing as anywhere on the planet. And I ski 125 days a year, and I'm building a golf course right now at the moment here on the property. It's a big project, and it's just me, and it's going to involve no water, but I think it's really pretty. And worst case, the golf course in the winter should provide some really good skate skiing, cross-country skate skiing, which I absolutely, it's a passion of mine.
When you build your golf course, would you do me a favor, please, and make sure all the fairways go up right so my slides be at home?
Oh, you're in bad shape, Judge. You are in bad shape. Nothing to the right. You don't want to be going to the right. And here's one for you. Bobby Clampett, the golfer, PGA winner, who I met skiing, actually came in and designed the course. Now, if this gets back to him, it's Taos National. Anyway, it's really cool. Really cool.
You're living a good life.
My property is 20 feet wide in the middle of New York City. Yes, feet, not acres. Feet wide and about 100 feet long. See? And if you want to get to my backyard, which is about 20 by 40 feet, you have to go through my house because our houses touch. So there's no way of going around to my backyard without going through my house. So we have a little bit of a different lifestyle, Governor. A little bit.
Larry,
And New
no
York's a pretty.
live in New York City. I'm sure that there's no one living there at all, is there? Because it's so small.
Absolutely, yes. Yes. I am a city boy, guilty as charged.
Hey, New York's a special place. I really enjoyed being there all the time that I was there. And
visiting is amazing. And I think the worst part about this coronavirus, which drives me crazy, is I think our cities are never going to recover to the way they were before, because the glory of the city was everyone coming together. And now that we see that we don't have to be together to still function in business, a lot of people aren't going to go back. If you look at some of the wealthy people in New York City, what they've done, many of them, they've gone out to their second homes and they're working from their second homes now. And they're liking working from their second homes now. They don't want to come back into the city. And if the wealthy stop coming back into the city, they're going to stop others who service them from coming back into the city. You're going to see a big change in cities now, I think, from Corona. And you might have some more neighbors, Governor. You might be hanging out with you. You might get some more neighbors.
Come on.
There we go. Oh, good.
That was good.
I love it. So I guess if I could ask, is there any advice that either of you would give to someone in the down ticket who right now is thinking about running for office, who right now is thinking about making that step to try to do something, to go through the crucible that we all have to go through? Any advice you'd give that person?
Well, that it should be a passion, that it should be something that you really want to do, and that success is the act. It's not whether you actually receive more votes or not. That's something we joked about during my first gubernatorial run. Hey, if I receive more votes, do I actually win? Or is that, that's the advice, that it be a passion, and that's your victory, is actually doing it. It's not the end. It's the journey. It's not the top of the mountain. It's the journey to get there, and you might not get to the top.
I love that, Governor. I'm so glad you actually stayed with us for so long and that you've been here. So many people have just walked away. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for staying with us. I really appreciate that. Sure. Judge, how about it?
Well, I would say that you have to plan ahead.
Okay.
Originally for Congress thinking, if a good candidate opens his doors, the world will flock to your doorstep. And it just doesn't happen. You have to plan. Yes, like we were saying, money is important in these races. You have to be prepared to put in some of your own money as seed money to, first of all, show your backers that you're serious, and that then you just have to organize. But when it comes down to it, particularly with social media too, it's personal, and that's in itself, and that keeps as much money from having to come into this. But you just have to have that passion. You have to be ready to shake hands, knock on doors, or get that word out. But you've got to be organized. You can't do it by yourself.
Got it. I'm sorry, Governor. I cut you off after I complimented you. Go ahead, please.
No, I just appreciate you both, and best of luck to both of you.
Excellent. Well, guys, anything else you want to bring up before we wrap this up?
I have one question that's been burned with Governor Johnson, that when I would see him, he'd have a kind of a backpack or a small duffel bag, and then all of a sudden he'd go into his hotel room and he'd come out wearing this really nice dark suit that was all pressed and looked really sharp. And when I travel, I'd have to wear my suit because I was afraid to put into my suitcase for fear it would come out rumpled. So Gary, what did you do to be able to put your suit into your your knapsack or your suitcase where it come out looking so good? I've always wanted to know.
Well, when I was running as a Republican for president, there was an article written about how frumpy I looked, and that my suit looked like it had just come out of a duffel bag. And so, it's funny about perspectives, but I did have that steamer. That's what I used, the steamer.
You cheated. That's what you did.
No, but I used the steamer before this guy saw my suit that called it called me the frumpiest looking guy he'd ever seen in his life.
So he called the most athletic candidate we've ever had frumpy.
Yep, he sure did.
That's odd.
You know, just you know, I'd been sleeping in the back seat of the car, and I just got out for the interview.
There we go. I love it. All right, gentlemen. I want to say thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for letting us kind of enjoy and kind of reminisce about the last couple of really good candidates we've had. The last couple of people who really made us all feel like we are part of a big team. Thank you so much.
All right.
May I say, Gary, when the last comment here, that I've always been appreciative of having my name linked with yours. Thank you for that experience. I really genuinely appreciate it. Thank you.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. And that goes for both of you. Love you both.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.